key point that has been mentioned by President Ahmed Madowe, which was accountability of the federal government with AMISOM, AMISOM with the federal government, and so on, and other partners, I think is very important, and it has been already captured in other areas. Therefore, Excellency, we all need to support the revised STP and place our trusts until its timely implementation from now on and the next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Let me now call Ambassador Donald Yamamoto of the US. Mohammed, is he connected? Okay. Let me go to the next. Is it okay? Okay, let me call Turkey.
Thank you, Excellency, Your Excellency, Deputy Prime Minister, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues. First, I would like to express our appreciation to the government for the prioritization of the ongoing security problems in the country and for its efforts to revitalize the CAS mechanism and updating the Somali transition plan. It is evident that providing security remains to be the top challenge in the country. We sincerely hope that this forum, along with the updated STP, will yield a roadmap for security institutions of Somalia in 2021 and beyond. There is need to continue to upgrade SNA with operational capabilities that can take the responsibilities from AMISOM. Fourth generation is the essence of this process. The configuration of AMISOM would provide the opportunity to increase the rate of offensive operations, but this would go hand in hand with the generation of forces in the SNA, Somali police and dervish forces. Thus, the establishment of a reliable police force within the Somali security architecture is another necessity. We believe that police and dervish forces can play a critical role in holding liberated areas. The federal government has taken enormous steps in the reformation of the Somali National Army. We expect this trend to continue in the coming period. In this context, introducing a sustainable pension system will be a milestone for stronger Somali security forces. We welcome the efforts of the team working to update the STP document. The new STP document should provide a roadmap for the government and the international partners by setting up realistic and achievable goals based on the assessment of the existing and envisaged resources. Now, I would like to say a few words about our activities in 2020. Despite the COVID-19 challenge, Turkey realized its goals within 2020 military and police training programs with only minor delays. Within 2020, we trained 3 Eagle battalions. The program will be concluded by February 2022 with 5,000 soldiers. In the face of increasing threat of EID, we provide a special counter-EID training for 60 SNA soldiers. We also established a special police force unit under the Somali National Police. Up to now, we have trained 700 police officers for the special forces. Weapons, ammunition, and personal protective equipment for Haramjat will arrive in Mogadishu this month. This year, we allocated additional $10 million to the SNA. SNA used this amount to procure 12 fully armored mine-resistant ambush-protected Kirpi vehicles and other protective equipment. An additional $8.5 million will be allocated for 2021 for equipping the Eagle battalions. Construction of the northern barracks near Turkson Military Center is underway. When completed, it will have the capacity to accommodate 3 battalions. I would like to reiterate that we are fully committed to continue our support together with all other international partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Let me call Sweden. Ambassador Stefan.
Thank you so much, Deputy Prime Minister. First, I agree very much with what Nicholas, the EU ambassador, said, so it makes it very easy for me to make some brief remarks along three general points. First, on security as multidimensional challenge, it also shows that a comprehensive approach to security is needed. The important role of the UN, as well as that of the African Union and AMISOM and IGAD, needs to be recognized in this. Relevant for security is not only military, but also justice, police, and security sector reform. Second, we should base this discussion on Somali security on a conditions-based approach, and we should recognize the important role of force generation and reform of the Somali security forces and institutions. Sweden has, again this year, made a contribution to the UNSOS Trust Fund for support to the SSF, Somali Security Forces, noting that the UN Security Council has increased the number of SSF, including police and Darwish, as well as support action against IEDs. We hope that this non-earmark contribution will inspire others to contribute and also assist the UN in broadening its support to SSF. The third point is about the dialogue and cooperation between the federal government and the federal member state and its fundamental importance for security. And this refers to force generation, stabilization, and other areas. A few years ago, in the preparation for the SPF in London 2017, the federal government and the federal member states agreed a national security architecture. It recognized the legitimate role and responsibility of the federal government and the states in building Somali security forces. It also recognized the role of the military, as well as police, and the role of national and state instruments for security coordination. It was part of a cooperative and comprehensive approach to security, recognizing the importance of integrating regional forces into the security structure. The federated policing model, agreed in 2016, provided such a framework for a cooperative approach to security. It led to the formation of the joint policing program, where state police has a role as well as the federal police. This in turn provided a basis for international partners' coordinated support to a Somali-led process of building state and federal police capacity. A mechanism for dialogue between the federal government and the states will enable Somalia to reconfirm its cooperative approach to security, including renewing an agreement on a national security architecture. The reason for doing so are as important now as they were in 2017, and it will help international partners more effectively support the strengthening of Somali security. So a cooperative approach involving federal government and the states will also improve effectiveness on the implementation of the Somali transition plan. Just three quick examples on this. On stabilization, it would be more effective with close cooperation with local and state actors, ensuring that people in liberated areas enjoy good governance, law and order, but also health, education, and other public services that are of importance to citizens in their everyday life. The cooperation between the federal government and the states will also help build the institutions and civilian guidance and oversight of security forces. Without a functioning administrative and civilian guidance structure, generated forces will not be acceptable nor sustainable. And the third point is about PVCV, which needs to take into account the changing nature of the threat of Al-Shabaab. Using the tools provided through the public financial management will be key to control money flows and to stop money laundering. The tools provided through rule of law and the justice institutions need to be used to stop extortion and bring perpetrators to justice. The key to all this is, again, a cooperative approach involving federal government of Somalia in its different sectors and ministries, as well as the federal member states. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Before I hand it over to the Prime Minister, let me again call Ambassador Yamamoto, if he's online and connected. So maybe for the sake of time, we proceed to Djibouti.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister. Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, Excellency, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Excellencies, the distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The Republic of Djibouti appreciates the huge and non-stop efforts made by the government of Somalia to maintain peace and stability in various regions of the country, and as well as the social and economic developments in the recent years. I would like to stress on the historic agreement between the federal government and the federal member states reached in Somalia and in Mogadishu to ensure inclusivity in the country's commitment to hold fair elections, free and fair elections. The Republic of Djibouti, while preserving the unity of Somalia, has always provided a platform and will continue to do so for the Somali people to resolve disputes starting from early 1990s peace conferences to the recent Somalia dialogue in Djibouti. We also welcome the significant progress in the collaboration between the government of Somalia and the international community, and we would like to encourage an increased engagement and partnership in rebuilding new Somalia. Thank you very much.
Finally, the Ambassador of Uganda.
Excellency Prime Minister, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to make some remarks on the Somali Security Transition Plan. We are grateful for the invitation to participate in this important forum. I'm glad to recognize the remarkable achievements of joint planning operations in recent conduct of Bado Bado 1, in which the key bridge towns of Sabidnole, Barile, Awadigle, and Janare along River Shabere were successfully secured to date. With the exception of Janare, which is jointly secured by AMISOM and SNA, the other three, Sabinandole, Barire, Awadigle, are independently and effectively secured by SNA by conducting targeted security operations which have effectively dominated the area. Quite a clear illustration of fruitful results with close cooperation and coordination between SNA and AMISOM. Moving forward, in view of the challenges and lessons learned during Operation Bado 1, and as we prepare for Operation Bado 2 and SNA AMISOM reconfiguration, the following remain areas of concern if we have to effectively deny Al-Shabaab freedom of action. 1, force generation. Is need for establishment of appropriate SNA and AMISOM mobile forces. There's also need to establish adequate regional state holding forces. And this can be illustrated by a clear security agreement between the federal member states and the federal government and the federal member states. There's need for establishment of the federal police forces, militias in this to make sure they are able to hold the security of the installation. There is need for repair of the road infrastructure along the main supply routes that has been badly eroded by the floods, e.g. the bridge between Mogadishu by Doha. There is also need for availability of force multipliers and enablers, and there is need for timely peace support service deliveries in order to win the hearts and minds in the areas that have been recovered. We appreciate the support rendered so far to SNA and AMISOM and appeal for the continued sustainability of the Operation Tempo. Uganda remains committed to the Somali stabilization effort. I thank you.
I'm informed Ambassador Yamamoto is online and he can take the floor.
Mr. President, I deeply apologize to you and your colleagues. I hope you can hear me now. Yes. So my points are, and excuse my undiplomatic bluntness, but let's all get real. It will be a very tough and violent fighting season as Shabab gets ready to reverse the successes that we've all made in Lower Shabelle from Somali National Army, AMISOM, and Danab. And as Shabab will be targeting not only Lower Shabelle, but also Galmudug to get to the north, down to Beladogle, and then to seat of the capital, Mogadishu. And to reverse all of the things that we have achieved during this last year in debt relief and good governance, economic governance. We must stand strong. The federal member states and the federal government must carry out the May 2017 London Agreement and the Baidoa Agreements to cooperate and to get this election completed as we had all agreed to. The opposition must reaffirm that there is no parallel process, there is no delay, there is no change to the September 17th consensus agreement. The United States and all the donor communities and partners are concerned about the electoral impasse. We call on the federal member states as well as the federal government to reach out and to resolve these differences. We will all hold anyone who is being a bad player accountable, and we will do all we can to achieve these elections and also stability. The Somali people now more than ever need unity, stability, and inclusion. If we fail today, the sacrifices will be for naught, and the gains that we are trying to achieve in the next phase will be reversed. We, the United States, along with our partners, commit to educating 1 million children, create 1 million jobs, look at expanding the economic developments, but most important, to expand good governance, to hold every elected official in Somalia accountable to the people. The decision is yours and all of ours. The federal government, the federal member states, opposition, all presidential candidates. Together we can achieve great things, but divided we can allow evil to reign. Thank you. The decision is ours today. And Mahatani, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Ambassador Yamamoto, for the valuable words and remarks. I can see over there. Oh, I see.
Yeah, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation would like to have a a small speech.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, Ambassador Mohammed. Somalia. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I convey to you warm greetings and best wishes of His Excellency Dr. Yusuf Al Uthaymeen, Islamic Cooperation, On behalf of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, we thank you for the opportunity to address this meeting of the Somali partners. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation is a key partner of Somalia as it continues to make progress towards becoming a peaceful and secure state. And the OIC decision to establish a full diplomatic mission in Mogadishu is a welcome reinforcement for its support to Somalia. The recently concluded conference of the Islamic Council of Foreign Ministers held in Niamey, Republic of Niger, between 27th and 28th of November, adopted a very important resolution on the situation in Somalia, in which member states reiterated their determination to support the ongoing efforts of the government of Somalia to maintain peace and security and achieve economic development. This reconciliation. Excellencies, we commend the federal government of Somalia, the Somali security forces, and AMISOM for their sacrifices in the stabilization efforts and urge them to sustain the momentum. We pay tribute to those who lost their lives and appeal to the UN Security Council to consider lifting the arms embargo imposed on Somalia in order to accelerate the building of Somalia's capacity in the security sector. We reiterate our respect for the unity, stability, and territorial integrity of Somalia and urge all other partners to do the same. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation strongly condemns all acts of terrorism and violent extremism aimed at destabilizing Somalia and thwarting the democratic process of the country, and we affirm that such abhorrent criminal acts are incompatible with the noble values of Islam. We call on the militants to renounce violence and join the peace-building and reconciliation process of the electoral timetable and call for its timely implementation in a transparent, inclusive, and peaceful manner as a means of restoring full democracy in Somalia. We will continue to mobilize our financial institutions to step up their assistance, including but not limited to humanitarian assistance, to the federal government of Somalia and the flood-affected regions to support peace and state building, as well as the reconstruction and development efforts. Excellencies, the main goal behind transforming OIC Humanitarian Office in Somalia into a full diplomatic mission is to contribute to the long-term political and socio-economic development of the country. Somalia has made progress in recent years, thanks to the strength of the partnership between Somalia and its international partners. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation reaffirms its commitment to this partnership and to the principle of mutual accountability in order to maximize the collective efforts to build a bright future for Somalia. Progress on national priorities requires inclusive dialogue and political consensus at all levels of government, especially between the federal government and federal member states. Despite challenges, Somalia has achieved significant progress and has the potential to make further improvements gained in the year 2021. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation remains committed to accompanying Somalia on its path to peace and development. At this critical moment, Somalia needs the unwavering support of all its friends. We are honored to join with the United Nations and other partners on this common endeavor to benefit the Somali people. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you. Next. will welcome to the floor the UN Deputy SRSG, Rai Senanga. Welcome.
Honorable Prime Minister, all protocols observed. Most of the UN's points were made by SRSG-1 this morning, and we also associate ourselves with the message on behalf of international partners from the EU. I have three very brief points that I would like to add. First, we welcome the federal government's We welcome the federal government's commitment to convene a fourth generation conference, and we hope that it will take place in January. Focus of the conference should be on generating both capable SNA units and capable holding federal and state Darawish. The second point we want to make is a message to international partners. We reiterate the call made earlier by our UNSOS colleagues in previous meetings last week on international partners to contribute both to the Somali Security Forces Trust Fund and the SNA Trust Fund. Both funds are almost depleted. The final point we have is a message to all Somali stakeholders. If the current disagreements are left unresolved, they will create insecurity. Pressing ahead with a disputed election implementation process will be detrimental to Somalia's security and stability. We are therefore pleased to note your commitment, Honorable Prime Minister, to invite federal member states leaders to resume dialogue soon. However, we are concerned that all the other voices that we have heard today from other representatives of the federal government did not seem to subscribe to dialogue and appeared to trivialize the concerns that have been expressed. Their message seemed to be that we are doing everything right and we are pressing ahead with the process. We believe that the best approach to pursue is what was done during the negotiations of the electoral model in August, September, and October, to bring everybody on board and come up with solutions that are embraced by all. We know that if you reach out to everyone, this will be achieved. To the opposition candidates, we say firmly, as was indicated by SRSG-1 and others earlier this morning, that the agreements reached on 17 September and the protocols signed on 1st October should not be reopened, and that there should not be a parallel process. We are therefore strongly urging all stakeholders to resume dialogue and find a consensual way forward as soon as possible. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Rai Senenga. Now we proceed to the France. Emmanuel Dagron.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister. All protocol observed. First of all, let me express my full support to the EU ambassador's remarks as well as the Deputy SRSG. In its relation with Somalia, France places the utmost importance in contributing to peace, security, and stability. We believe in a Somalia that is willing and able to guarantee its own security and sovereignty and cooperate constructively with its neighbors. Therefore, we have been supporters of the principle of a well-planned transition of responsibilities to Somalia security forces. In that, we welcome the efforts from the government to revise the transition plan, to plan for the security of elections and for increased security in the capital. We are now looking forward to the implementation of these plans. However, this transition cannot credibly happen without a clear vision of the strategy within the FGS and between all Somali actors. This means, among others, regular engagement between the federal government and the federal member states, including at the highest level, to coordinate operation and to pool resources against terrorism, which is a common threat to the credibility of all Somali actors and institutions. This is why we have been constantly calling for the National Security Council to be reinvigorated. We regret that this has not happened in the last years, despite our calls and evidence of its necessity. Instead, we remain in a situation where security means can be mobilized for political reasons, which will definitely not help the credibility of Somali authorities as a whole vis-à-vis extremist organizations. France believes in a sovereign Somalia that is able to ensure its own security. So we call on you to take credible steps in that direction, obviously, by ensuring the revised transition plan is implemented in a collaborative spirit and that the elections are secured in common by the federal government and federal member states will be crucial if Somalia wants future support for operation to be adequately resourced. We believe your invitation to the FMS and your visits to the federal member states meeting your visit will be the right time to address these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Now it is time for our civil society team. I would like to welcome Amina Haji Ilmi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم مدن الرئيس الوزراء ومهاتسنتهاي مرتي شرفك international community iyo dawladda iyo Soomaalida nagala joogtana waa mahadsan yihiin iyo madaxweynayaasha stateska oo ku jira iyagana shirka waan ka mahadinaynaa shirkan casuumaadana lagu casuumay kaliya waxaan rabaa laba qodob inaan kor istaago ولو أن صار دافتي إن قدر ولا بتحق ما نقول إنه وقتها نلوه waxaan rabaa doorashada inaan wax yar ka iraahdo ilaa iyo markii Soomaaliya gadaal ay u soo laabatay waxaan ka mid ahayn dadkii ama civil society ama women leaders uga qayb galay shirarka marka waxaan rabaa inaan ka soo bilaabo imbigaati markii laga yimid 2012kii waxaan ku guuleysanay dawladda inaan ku dhisano xamar Soomaaliya lagu dhiso xamarna ay noqoto meeshii laga sameynayay ayadoo maamulka iyo nidaamka ay noo waday dawladdii markaa jirtay 2016 kana dawladdii markaa jirtay ay maamulka noo waday oo ay la kaashanaysay isteedyadii waxaan u fadhinay oo ku shaqeynayno xoog gelinay inaan u gudubno maxaa yeelay stebiska xamar baa leeyahay haddana gobolada 2006 la aaday qof iyo cod inaan u dareerna ayaan ku shaqaynaynay civil society-ga dawladda iyo guddigii almost 8 sano la tababarayay intaba ma dhicin waxaa duruufo adagoo dalka ka jiray waxay ku soo gabagabowday oo aan raalli ka ahayn haddaan nahay civil society-gii in doorasho dadban gadaal loo aado oon hubno ognahayna wixii laga gaaray 2016 laakiin duruufta darteed wixii lagu heshiiyey waxaanu ku qasbanayn inaan raacno marka waxaan rabaa wixii lagu heshiiyey inay hore u sii socdaan si looga baxo dalku uu gaaro doorashadii caadiga ahayd oo 4 sano mar madaxweyne noo soo bixi jiray kadibna aan annaga international community-ga iyo dawladdeeda hor kacaysaba aan dalkan u gudbino qof iyo codkiis runtii international community-gana waxaan rabaa as Somali woman leader or Somali civil society inaan u mahadnaqo roolkii iyo waqtiyada adkaayo nolol soo mareen oo dalkan ay ka soo saareen qodobka labaad waxa weeye kootada haweenka qof walba oo ka hadlay kootada wuxuu yiri waa in la tixgeliyaa waa mahadsantihiin waxaan rabnaa marba haddii tixgelin aan joogno in loo sameeyo la mas'uuliyad ay yeelataan rabnaa kootadu inay mas'uuliyad yeelato waa ka soo shaqeynay ilaa markii Soomaaliya isku timid qabiil walba waxaa nooga calaamaysan kursiga gabdhuhu ay ku leeyihiin mudan ra'iisul wasaare adigoo la kaashanaya tiimkaaga iyo international community-ga intaba waxaan u fadhinaa oo galabta rabnaa shirkan inuu nooga soo baxo kootadu inay dad yeelato oo aan meelan kula xisaabtano wixii hadhow naga dhacana aan meelan la aadno aan aan heli karno waa mahadsantihiin tan siin saaxiibaday soo dhameey
وهذا ما يستمرنا أمين حج أوكي وكم هسنتها أمين حج thank you والروم وايه كوتدا دمر كمركز توال الحقيرة وكور رعسنا هاي هذا مدحوين ياشي هلا يوحنا مرينا يا كليه وحكى هلا مدحوين اللفت جرام وبلن قاضين وكوتدا سحوق السعره أنا حكومة دهنا وكو كرجوكتين هنا هدوا اللي إدنا and we try our best أمين حج علمي waxaan hadda rabaa inaan ku xijiyo Usmaan Muxidiin Shaatax from civil society.
Thank you, Excellency. Excellency Prime Minister Roble, all protocol observers, good afternoon. Actually, as a civil society, we're really very concerned about security, and usually, Somalia security has been improving for the last, and it's very important to continue this progress. As we all know, always the election time, if we will not manage well, it creates insecurity. However, as a civil society, in June this year, several network of organizations joined forces to create unified voice through the establishment of National Civil Society Platform. This coalition goal was to actively engage in search for solution to the political controversies surrounding 2021 election. Indeed, the presence of the civil society in Dusamreb during talks and the various meetings that it had with the President of the federal government, the Prime Minister, and the President of member states were crucial for political compromise reached by the leaders, in particular, their recognition of civil society as a major stakeholder in the election. However, as disputes over electoral committee and gather administration have emerged in a new challenge, and the civil society remain committed in playing its role ensuring that the reconciliation process is completed and comprehensive deal is reached. To this effect, the civil society has initiated a second round since we were put a lot of effort to have electoral model by the leaders. Now we put effort again and second round to meet with the national leaders. And so far we met the President of the federal government, which was a very useful meeting we had, and the Prime Minister as well, and also the upper house speaker, and forum for federal candidates, presidential candidates. Meeting with the speaker and the people assembled in the state president's planet, and the coalition of civil society organizations is cognizant of the plural and divided society in a united civil society voice. It's guided by the principle of impartiality, neutrality, and protection of the citizens' rights. Therefore, as part of our election-related engagement, the coalition present following recommendations. First, dialogue should be the only way current disputes are resolved. All parties should refrain from derogatory and inflammatory language, use of violence, and inclement for violence should be equally condemned. The two controversial issues of electoral committee and the gather need to be addressed immediately, and we call as following our international partners, it's really very important to have emergency meeting with the leaders of federal government and federal government to solve this dialogue. However, we think more proactive and preventive measures by the international community are crucial, given the fast changing political situation and the increasing potential security risk involved. We argue the international community to use its good offices for an effective intervention. We believe that the ongoing slow-paced diplomatic shuttle is not commensurate to the required speed for preventive measures. This meeting will be very productive, and if held and for federal government and federal member state leaders face-to-face encounter than a Zoom meeting platform. A secretariat composed of representatives could then be established to ensure the continuity of contacts and further operational decision-making process. Finally, National Civil Society Platform will be engaged in the election in two fundamental ways: civic education and public awareness raising, and election monitoring. The civil society will organize discussion forums on election issue, will hold public meetings, and collaborate with the media on electoral education and peace awareness. The coalition will establish an election monitoring center with a network of election observers that will follow all election process for each seat before, during, and after. The civil society election observers will document the delegate selection process, candidates, campaigners, registration process, final candidate list, complaint by candidate on constituents. The monitoring center will flag seats with potential conflict. The center will release daily press release, weekly, monthly report, and finally, civil society election observers report. We will appeal for funding support for this important civil society initiative. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shatah. Now let me pass to the ambassador, Fionnuala Quinlan, Irish ambassador. Sorry if I say it wrong way.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers of your Cabinet, Presidents, Excellencies. It's an honour to join you today for this important meeting, and let me start by thanking all of you involved in organising it. I'd first like to align with the EU statement delivered earlier today, and then to say that as a steadfast partner of Somalia, Ireland would like to recognise the real progress that you've made in recent years, including in improving security and putting Somalia's finances on a more sustainable footing. It's true to say that you've achieved a great deal, notwithstanding the very complex challenges that you face. I would like to focus my brief remarks today on the humanitarian situation in Somalia and the role of women, civil society and the media. Please let me first say that I regret I'll have to leave to take the UN flight before hearing all of your remarks, and to thank you for allowing me to intervene at this stage. The Prime Minister and others have spoken of the triple threat caused by COVID, locusts and flooding, which together are causing grave difficulties to families and communities across Somalia. The cycle of floods and droughts compounds a deeply fragile humanitarian situation. Ireland has been a long-standing partner of Somalia, providing more than €60 million in humanitarian and development support in recent years to promote food security, improved health services, and to tackle gender-based violence. We recognise too that at a moment when Somalia was perhaps least prepared, Cyclone Gati struck, causing further devastation and displacement of families. We have responded to this crisis and we urge others in the international community to continue to support Somalia as it addresses the humanitarian crisis affecting communities across the country, but also to help build the resilience of Somalia to withstand climatic and other shocks. We wholeheartedly condemn all terror attacks, including the murder and abduction of humanitarian workers, and I want to express our condolences to the families of all those killed in the course of their compassionate work to support those in need. We urge all parties to ensure unimpeded humanitarian access and the safety of all humanitarian workers. I also would like to express our concern at the worrying statistics in relation to gender-based violence, conflict-related sexual violence, and abuses relating to children, and call for a greater focus on prevention, education, services for survivors, and accountability for perpetrators. But let me turn now briefly to the crucial issue of women, youth and civil society and politics and peace building. This year marks 20 years since the landmark UN resolution on women, peace and security was agreed, and Ireland intends to make the women, peace and security agenda a priority throughout our upcoming term on the UN Security Council, which starts on the 1st of January. We do this not only because it's the right thing to do, but because we've clearly seen from our own recent experience of building and maintaining peace on the island that women play a crucial role at every juncture. To be successful, peace building must be inclusive. I listened as Zainab Hassan, chair of the Somali Gender Equity Movement, told the UN Security Movement just 2 weeks ago that without women's full presence at the table where decisions are being made, Somalia will not be able to attain sustainable peace and create a just society based on the rule of law. And that has been the experience of Ireland. I also want to strongly agree with partners who've stressed the importance of achieving the 30% women's quota in the upcoming elections. I know there is increasing concern that we may face a post-electoral situation where the number of women in Parliament might even fall short of the current 24%. And we strongly believe that in order to achieve the 30% quota, there needs to be a clear mechanism agreed for implementation and enforcement. I welcome the work of Minister Ibrahim and her colleagues in trying to build a national consensus on this important issue, and her clearly articulated commitment to free and fair elections, freedom of participation, assembly, and freedom of speech. And there is no doubt that for this electoral process to be inclusive, the delegate selection process must be transparent and credible, and civil society must be involved in a really meaningful way. The rights of the media should be ensured so that media across Somalia can express themselves freely. This is always deeply important, but particularly so at an election time. So let me end there and let me restate Ireland's commitment to Somalia and to continue to work with our EU and UN partners to support you in responding to the challenges that you face, including in your efforts to stabilise the country. Thank you so much.
I think it's over now. Yes. Or the Spanish delegation.
Mr. Prime Minister, Excellencies and authorities, ladies and gentlemen, partners all, the three main points of the agenda today are deeply intertwined, and failing to make progress in one of them jeopardizes the other two. In this regard, I would like to support the interventions made by the head of the EU delegation, Ambassador Nicholas Berlanga, in the previous topics. It's been considered that in order to ensure a peaceful, credible and fair electoral process, it is crucial to maintain a continuous social and political dialogue between the federal government of Somalia and the federal member states. In this concern, we would like to welcome His Excellency's intention to make a trip and to meet with the presidents of the third member states in the coming months. Spain supports an Somali-owned electoral process that is inclusive, transparent, and credible, and with respect to human rights, and also that respects the quota of 30% of women. Dear authorities, dear Excellencies, it's for me a great honor to announce that Spain will contribute with over 4 million euros to the special account for Somalia of the International Monetary Fund. This is also part of the success that Somalia has made in the recent months on the IMF agreement. Furthermore, Spain will also contribute with $2 extra million to the IMF COVID-19 Crisis Capacity Development Initiative, of which Somalia will also benefit. Spain has been supported the EU policy towards Somalia, has been actively contributing to the international support to the security architecture, leading the Atalanta mission, the naval mission of the European Union, and also the EU training mission. These two pillars, along with the EU CAP mission, have contributed to the successes of the Somali security architecture. Spain is a reliable partner of Somalia and is committed to keep that way. The situation, however, requires concrete further progress on security cooperation, on transparency, and on political consensus with other stakeholders. Spain considers that the steps described before will be needed to achieve the outcome that we all want to see: a prosperous, inclusive, and stable Somalia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now let's move to the next session, which is the socio-economic recovery from COVID-19 and climate-related shocks. So, welcome, Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Mahdi.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Good afternoon, all. Before the pandemic, Somalia's economy was on upward trajectory, recovering from a major drought in 2016-2017, with the economy growing at 2.9% in 2019 and was projected to grow at 3.2% in 2020. The triple crisis of floods, locust infestation, and global COVID-19 has had a negative impact on real GDP growth in 2020, affecting the economy through a combination of supply and demand shocks. And as a result of shutdowns, global supply chains have disrupted imports of consumption and capital goods from Somalia's main trading partners, notably exports of livestock due to the cancellation of the Hajj in 2020. Livestock makes up almost 60% of Somalia's export earnings. Remittances from our diaspora, which accounted for almost a quarter of our GDP, has also sharply declined in the first half of this year. The coronavirus pandemic and subsequent slowdown has had a high toll on our economy, with a particular impact on Somalia's micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, which are the biggest source of employment. The recurrent climate change shocks in the form of a more frequently recurrent droughts, floods, and cyclones have strained already scarce resources and risks derailing progress on reforms and economic recovery. Economic reforms will continue to be a priority for the federal government of Somalia as we build back better. The federal government of Somalia has committed to financial reforms, including those that meet the ECF benchmarks and triggers as agreed with our international development partners. On trade, the government has established the Somalia's National Trade Facilitation Committee to facilitate the implementation of trade and trade-related reforms. We have committed to joining the rules-based multilateral trading system and have prioritized the process of Somalia's accession to the WTO organization. Through WTO membership and through the accession process itself, Somalia hopes to fast-track and further bolster the country's efforts to improve and update its legal and regulatory framework, open up its trading system, and liberalize its economy. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry is also finalizing Somalia's trade policy in order to tap into opportunities in the region and COMESA with the African Continental Free Trade Area and beyond, thus opening up new trade routes and horizons for our people. The establishment of the Somali Bureau of Standards will address issues of certification and standardization to facilitate safer trade and boost economic growth by removing technical barriers to trade. The Bureau is currently in the process of joining international and regional standardization bodies. The government is implementing sector reforms to improve the quality and sustainability of economic infrastructure in roads, ports, airports, and energy. This is expected to contribute to increased trade and productive sectors' revenues. We are harmonizing urban planning policies and investments for vulnerable groups and will continue to increase revenue collection in urban centers. On natural resources and environment, the federal government of Somalia has identified water as an important natural resource and has developed the National Water Resource Strategic Plan. We are very committed to improving the status of the country's environment and to promoting community resilience for both present and future generations. We have taken major steps in instituting environmental management authorities to implement changes on a national level. Climate change has not only increased the devastating droughts, flash floods, and cyclones, but has direct bearing on the prevailing insecurity and the massive displacement issue that exacerbates the poverty situation. We are therefore fully committed to the national environment policy and a climate change adaptation and resilience policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Mahdi. Now, let me invite to the floor Ms. Christina Svensson from World Bank Country Manager for Somalia. I think she's online.
Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, UNSRSG, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It's really an honor for me to be here, although virtually, and I wish very much that I could have been there with you today. I want to thank, as many others have, the government and the Office of the Prime Minister for the organization of this forum, and for the work that both partners and the government of Somalia have put into the forum and into updating the 2020 MAF and looking forward to the 2021 MAF. Yeah. I'd like to focus my remarks on three main issues. The first one has been covered partly already by the Deputy Prime Minister, but it's basically taking stock a little bit of where we are with the impact from the triple crisis. As the Deputy Prime Minister said, the economy is projected to contract by 1.5% in 2020, but expected to rebound thereafter to 2.9% in 2021. We see the revenue collection is down for 2020 by up to 85%. It's estimated 85% of the original 2020 budget, while expenditures increased to support addressing the impacts from the crisis. Notably, grants to the federal member states increased by more than threefold, and social expenditures have also increased. Remittances, as was mentioned, actually in the third quarter of 2020, we see actually an increase from last year, which is good news. So, and that shows the resilience of the financial system. We see that imports are rising, notably of petroleum products. Food prices and food insecurity are also expected to rise. This means that increasing levels of poverty and vulnerability amongst the urban poor and those engaged in the livestock trade. As was mentioned, firms also are facing a liquidity challenge and layoffs. Despite these challenges, as has also been mentioned already, Somalia has achieved significant progress. Of course, I cannot leave without mentioning the reaching of the HIPC decision point and the continued progress toward HIPC completion point. And this is important not only because the debt relief, but it has also helped unlock significant resources for development, both from ourselves, from IDA, as well as from the other development banks and the international financial institutions, to support the federal government and the federal member states' response to the triple shock. Important economic and public financial management reforms have taken place, as is highlighted in the 2020 MAF. Special efforts to address the negative impacts of COVID have been implemented, notably tax reliefs. The central bank has released financing from its microfinance fund. The National Social Safety Net Program, the Bashnano program, was launched and has supported almost 400,000 Somalis so far, building on WFP and UNICEF delivery systems financed by IDA. The Gargara finance facility is being repurposed to allocate funding to protect livelihoods and supporting struggling micro and small enterprises. The approval in Cabinet recently of the Environmental Management and Coordination Bill is also encouraging, as are the continued efforts of the federal government of Somalia Directorate of Environment and Climate Change to negotiate with forest departments in the federal member states. But I guess here comes my main point, and that is that we need to keep this reform momentum going, and that we are committed to providing all the support that we can to that process. We're fully committed to supporting the commitments laid out in the 2021 MAF, and I would like to highlight perhaps 3 issues that I think are of importance and that requires our joint extra efforts going forward. The first one has already been mentioned. It's the continued dialogue between the federal government and of Somalia and the federal member states on the sharing of resources, with the goal of creating a rules-based, transparent system for intergovernmental fiscal transfers. And this would need to be accompanied by continued efforts to strengthen public financial management systems, both at the federal level and at the member state level. And I would like here also to respond to the Prime Minister's earlier request for support in terms of the security sector, public expenditures. And we are willing to continue our work on the technical and analytical level, including looking at the security sector expenditures within the broader framework of public expenditure reviews, which can help inform the debate around affordability for the transition. The second thing that I think we need to continue focusing on, that a lot of work has already been done, has also been mentioned today by the Swedish ambassador, is the reforms in the financial and telecommunication sectors, aimed at improving governance, increasing transparency, and combating money laundering and terrorist financing. Here, the passing of the Digital ID law was important, and we fully support the work of the Financial Governance Committee. We also think that the upcoming possible signing of the audit bill would be a great step in the right direction. But further policy reforms in the financial sector and strong political leadership are needed. This includes strengthening of the supervisory functions of the Financial Reporting Center and the central bank, enhancing payment system infrastructure, and the rollout of the digital ID for all Somalis. These reforms are essential for promoting private sector investment to Somalia, but it's also essential to increasing financial inclusion and enhancing, perhaps most importantly, in enhancing service delivery, including through a functioning unified social registry. So the digital ID, I think, if there's anything that I would like us to put extra focus on, is the digital ID. I would like to end by sharing the words of Yasmin Sheikhdon, a young Somali woman and a co-founder and CEO of Samawat Energy. Her company recently launched Afia, a digital platform that helps connect healthcare centers with men, women, and children that need them the most. It provides healthcare workers in rural off-grid communities with a smartphone and an on-the-go solar healthcare backpack equipped with Bluetooth-enabled medical devices that safely collect and store patient data. This innovative solution will help address the most common healthcare concerns in Somalia, and it's a really good example of the creativity and entrepreneurialism of Somali youth. Yasmin's vision is a more just and equitable future for all, where health is no longer a privilege. And in that spirit, thinking about the young youth, creative youth of Somalia, the World Bank Group remains fully committed to continue our support to Somalia and to the reforms and commitments laid out in the 2020 Mutual Accountability Framework. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Christina Svensson. Now let me give to the floor the President of the Hirshabelle, the new elected, the President of Hirshabelle, State of Somalia. Kusoo dhawow Ali Abdullahi Hussein, madaxweynaha cusub ee Hirshabelle.
wasaaraha xubnaha golaha wasiirada madaxweynayaasha dowlad goboleedyada gudoomiyaha gobolka Banaadir wakiilada beesha caalamka iyo guud ahaan ka soo qaybgalayaasha waxaan idinku salaamaa salaamta islaamka assalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaahi wabarakaatuh bacda salaam mudana ra'iisul wasaare aad ayaan ugu faraxsanahay inaan ka soo qayb galo shirkan heerkiisu sareeyo mudana ra'iisul wasaare mudana yaaliye marwooyin sidaad wada ogsoontihiinba mar dhow ayay ka soo baxday doorasho dowlad goboleedka Hirshabelle doorashadaas oo ku dhacday si deganaana oo nabadgelyo ah ilaahay ayaa mahadaas iska leh oo sidaas dhibka yar noogu soo gabagabeeyay doorashadii ka dhacday dowlad goboleedka Hirshabelle mudana ra'iisul wasaare haddii aan galo ajandaha aan uga hadlaynay shirkan COVID-19 dhibaato badan ayuu ka geystay guud ahaan caalamka gaar ahaanna Soomaaliya sida caafimaadka iyo hoos u dhac dhaqaale caafimaadka sidaad wada ogsoontihiinba dad badan oo qaali ayaa lagu waayay oo naftooda ku waayay dad badanna way ka soo kabteen ilaaha mahadda iska leh annagoo wada og in dad badanna ay guryahooda la joogeen xanuunkaas iyagoo u baahnaay wacyigelin badan sababtoo ay dadku waxay ka aaminsanaayeen wax kale qofta aad tiraahdo way xanuunsanay qofta ku leedahay calaamadihiisina way kuu sheegay waxay ku leedahay urka iga tagay dhadhanka iga tagay goobiya caafimaadkana lama xiriirayaan waxaan isleeyahay haddii wacyigelin badan la sameey lahay dadku goobaha caafimaadka ay tagi lahaayeen dhibaatadiisuna intaan way ka yaraa laheeday waxaa loo baahan yahay in wacyigelin badan dadka la siiyo goobaha caafimaadkana iyo dhaqaatiirta caafimaadkana aad loo taleeyana waa ku tali lahayn hoos u dhici dhaqaale ee ka dhashay waxaan wada ogsoonahay guud ahaan dhaqdhaqaaqi inuu kala istaagay ganacsiga guud ahaan hadday gaadiidka socodkiisi tahay iyo hadday tahay dukaamankii iyo maqaayadihii iyo guud ahaan bulshada dhaqdhaqaaqeedii dhamma inuu istaagay bulshaduna waxay wax ku heshaa dhaqdhaqaaqaas waxaa hoos u dhacay dhaqaalihii guud ahaan dadkii ay ku tiirsaneedeen noloshoodu biilalka dibadaha looga soo dirana way waayeen biilalkii muddadaas sababtuna waxay ahayd dadkii ay wax ka sugaayeen oo iyaguna shaqo aadi karin oo guryo ku xirraay iyo guud ahaan xawaaladihii oo istaagay waxaan dhihi karnaa marka dhib aad u ballaaran ayaa dhinaca dhaqaalaha ka soo gaaray guud ahaan Soomaaliya waxaa lagama maarmaan ah in la sameeyo qiimeyn dhab ah khasaaraha iyo dhibaatada ka dhalatay iyo hoos u dhaca dhaqaale ka yimiday COVID-19-kii waxaa lagama maarmaan ah si looga soo kabto in qiimeyn la sameeyo lagana yeesho tala midaysan si dadka danyarta ee dhibaatadu ka soo gaartay loogu helo xal ay uga soo kabtaan dhibaatadii COVID-19-kii ka soo gaartay waxaa kaloo meesha ku jirta iyadana fatahaadaha dhibaato badan ayay ku hayaan guud ahaan Soomaaliya gaar ahaan inta webiyaashu ay maraan waxaan wada ogsoonahay dhowrkii sano ee la soo dhaafay dhibaatada uu ka geystay webiga Shabeelle deegaanada oo maro dad badan ayaa ka barakacay magaalooyinkii iyo tuulooyinkii ku teedsanay webiga hareeradiisa waxaa laga maarmaan ah in xal waara loo helo sida carratuur ee webiga meelaha uu ka jilacsan yahay la carratuuro in loo helo xilliyada uu buuxsamo meelo lagu neefiyo oo kanaala waaweyn iyo meelo biiqabada in loo helana waa lagama maarmaan waan wada ognahay in muddo uusan helin webigu dayactir waxaa jiro meelo carrada ay tuurantay ee webiga uu ka naqday weel camal labada dhinac u daadanaya mar waliba markii uu biyo keeno dadkii tuulooyinka ku hareeraysan webiga dhinaciisa noloshooda waxay ku tiirsaneeday dalaga beeraha saddexdii sano ee la soo dhaafana sanad waliba markay tacbaan daadkaas ayaa qaadayay tuulooyinka isu socodkoodii iyo magaalooyinkiina wadooyinkiina way go'een waxaa lagama maarmaana marka in wax laga qabto dhibaatadaas soo noqnoqotay ee ka timaado fatahaadaha webiga Shabeelle iyo webiyaasha guud ahaan maro Soomaaliya dhibaatadaas laga dhaxlay in xal waara loo helaa lagama maarmaana dad badan barakacay oo dib ugu soo naqa waayay deegaanadii ay ku noolaa jireen goobii ay tageen aan nolol ku haysan waxaan ku talinaynaa marka in xoogga la wada saaro sida xal looga gaari lahay fatahaadaas oo carratuur loogu heli lahay oo gacmo wada jira iyo tala midaysan wax looga qaba lahay Hirshabeelle waad ogtiin mar dhawaa la dhisay dalka guud ahaan khilaafaad iyo dad maaragtay xoolo dhaqatay beeraley dhibab dhex maraa jireen waxaan ku talinaynaa in dib u heshiisiin dhab loo sameeyo haday bulshada tahay iyo haday dhinaca siyaasadda tahay cidii wax tabaysan iyadana laga xalliyo oo dib u heshiisiin la helo si dadkaas ay u noolaadaan oo si wada jiray si maaragtay diris wanaaga ay ugu noolaadaan arrimaanka amniga waxaad ogsoontiin in dalka maaragtay meel badan nimanka nabadiidka ay dib ku hayaan Hirshabeelle haddaan ka hadalnana degmooyin badan ay kala xiran oo degmo u gudbi karto ay sajiroon oo dhexdooda ay galeen isu socodkii ka istaajiyeen duulaamo badan iyo dhibaato badan iyo dhabagal badan ay ku hayaan degmada Cadale duulaanka ay hadda ku soo qaadeen ugu dambeeyay way ku jabeen dhibaatayna kala kulmeen ilaa ay gaaraan inay meydkooda uga tagaan goobta waa u mahad celinayaa ciidanka amniga ee cadawgaas ka hortagay jabkana gaarsiiyeen waa mahadsantiin ayaan leeyahay waxaa laga maarmaana in la tayeeyo ciidamada amniga guud ahaan gaar ahaanna booliska iyo daraawiishta in la tayeeyo haday tababar tahay haday qalabayn tahayna waa laga maarmaan si looga adkaado cadawga nabadiidka ee ummadda dhibaatada ku hayo waxaa iyadana laga maarmaana in dhanka garsoorka la xoojiyo tababar la siiyo maaragtay dad aqoontooda iyo shakhsiyadooda lagu kalsoon yahay in garsoorkaas loo helaa lagama maarmaana cadaaladdu haddaan la helin amni lama helaayo cadaaladdu waa qayb ka mid ah amniga waxaa laga maarmaana dadka la soo qabto ama booliska uu soo qabto saldhigyada ayay ku xiran yihiin in la helo xabsiyadii lagu dhaqan celi lahay xirfadaha shaqo lagu bari lahay cidii la xukumana in xabsigaas loo helo waa laga maarmaan sidaas ayaan ku talinaynaa daadejinta nidaamka dawliga ama dawladaha hoose si loo gaaro horumar bulshaduna ay u hesho maamulay iida leedahay oo soo dooratay markii hore hadii loo magacaabi jiray maamulay iida dhexdeeda rabitaankooda ku yimid in la helo waa in la daadejiyo nidaamka dawladaha hoose ee degmo kasta iida loo madax baneeyo inay istoortaan shakhsiga ay u arkaan inuu hogaamin karo deegaankana inay doortaan laba arrimo faa'iido u leedahay horumarka ay qayb ka tahay rabitaanka bulshadana qayb weyn ayay ka tahay qof ay u kalsoon yihiin ayay dooranayaan waxaa lagama maarmaan ah iyadana inaan hal iyo lama ka dhaano waqtiga jiro awgiis doorashooyinka qaranka dalku wuxuu joogaa xilli uu doorasho gelaayo ummadda Soomaaliyeedna guud ahaan waxay sugaysay inay dhacdo doorasho qof iyo coda sababo jir awgood ayay u suurageli weysay kadibna waxaa la isugu yimid shirar badana la isugu yimiday oon mar ahayn oo laba ahayn oo looga hadlaayay siday u dhici laheeday doorasho lagu wada qanacsan yahay oo qof kastoo Soomaaliya ay ku qancayso qaabka ay wax u dhacday waxaan ku talinaynaa heshiisyadii la galay in ma aragtay lagu qanco waxyaalihii tabashaha ee jirana heshiiskaas dhexdiisa lagu soxo cidii wax tabaysana laga qanciyana waa ku talinaynaa sidaad wada ogsoontiin doorashadii dhacday oo doorashadan ka horeysay qaybta dumarka Hirshabeelle waxay aheeday isteediyada ugu badan oo kootadii 30% ka ilaaliyay insha Allah hadii ay raalli ka noqdo haddana waa ilaali doonaa 30% iyo qaybta ay lahaayeen waa ilaali doonaa hadii ay raalli ka noqdo aad iyo aad u mahadsantiin soo dhawaada waxaan leeyahay Soomaaliya ha guuleysato waa mahadsantiin
mahadsantahay madaxweyne Ali Abdullahi Hussein Hirshabeelle President. Now I would like to call the Governor of Banaadir region, the Mayor of Mogadishu, Umar Mahmoud Mohammed. Umar, finish.
His Excellency Mohammed Hussein Roble, the Prime Minister of the Federal Government of Somalia, and the Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers, Presidents of the Federal Member States of Somalia, Ambassadors, and international partners, representatives, other notable participants. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to participate with you in 2020 Somali Partnership Forum, a conference that has its importance towards coordination and strengthening partnership between Somalia and international partners gathering in each year to achieve peaceful and prosperous Somalia. As announced by the federal government of Somalia, elections are going to be held in the country. The Banaadir Regional Administration will take its role in conducting peaceful, transparent, and fair elections in Banaadir region. I commend the leadership of the federal government, the progress made on the preliminary steps taken towards elections, including nomination of the electoral committees at federal and state levels. I emphasize the need to hold elections on time as agreed by all stakeholders. I urge that elections should be transparent and fair, and all interested parties to avoid potential instability during elections at all electoral constituencies of Somalia. On the other hand, the citizens of Mogadishu, the only region in Somalia paying full taxes to the federal government of Somalia, is still suffering from an absence of their political representation at both houses and exercise their political right to elect or to be elected as per the Articles of 22 and the 72 of the Constitution. I much appreciate the House of the People for the approval of 13 cities allocated for Banaadir region and the upper house, but still we demand to finish other. legal process, including upper house consent, to ensure the total number of the upper house to be 67 seats. The determination of Mogadishu political status is among professional articles of the Constitution, as well as the formation of permanent and democratic Banati regional administration is still untouched, which all makes the journey of the federalization and the state formation is not yet finished in Somalia. As BRA, we have had various stakeholders I might appreciate the House of the People for the approval of 13 cities allocated for the Banati region at the upper house, but still we demand to finish other pending legal process, including upper house consent, to ensure the total number of the upper house to be 67 cities. The determination of Mogadishu political status is among professional articles of Constitution, as well as the formation of permanent and democratic Banati regional administration is still untouched, which all makes the journey of the federalization and the state formation is not yet finished in Somalia. As BRA, we have had various stakeholders. We have had various stakeholders consultations in Mogadishu to hear their voices and demands towards the status of capital in a federal Somalia. We reached a conclusion which underlines that the local people of Mogadishu prefer an option of Mogadishu to be capital city state that has similar status and responsibilities of the federal member states of Somalia. This, as I believe, will lead to stability, local satisfaction, and legitimacy for Mogadishu administration. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the security progresses in Mogadishu, it has been a good trend where the cooperation and the coordination of the regional security agencies and the district administrations have been effective, that led to decrease of terrorist incidents. As part of the security plan, blockade roads of Mogadishu were opened and expanded to other locations as per the plan. Meanwhile, the inhabitants of the city welcomed this move by the government. We organized various communities gathering in all Mogadishu districts, aiming social integration, community policing, and working with the security sectors. This approach has been successful in Mogadishu, where local community and the security agencies working together, sharing security information, and operate jointly. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, 2020 year was different for the world due to outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has had negative socio-economic impacts on the globe generally. Somalia, a country with not enough resources and capacities, is among world countries with this pandemic. According to Mogadishu, as confirmed by BRA and the Federal Ministry of Health, total cases of 1,600 plus have been confirmed since March this year. That makes Mogadishu the city with the most COVID-19 cases, including disease in Somalia, with limited capabilities to deal with the virus. According to the economic impact, Banadi Regional Administration faced a huge budget deficiency of 45% out of the projected official budget of 2020 that led us to be incapable to deliver key milestones planned in 2020 due to budget loss. I thank all the partners who have been providing emergency and budget supports in this critical time we all undergo to manage the pandemic and its impacts. Mr. Prime Minister, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, let me again thank to the federal government under your leadership and His Excellency President of the Federal Republic of Somalia for your support. I also would like to thank representatives and the international community at large for their unwavering support and help for Somalia contributing state building efforts to achieve a stable and prosperous Somalia. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar. Finish, the mayor of Mogadishu and the governor of Banadi region. Now I would like to call Minister of Health and Social Care, Federal Government of Somalia, Fawzia Abikar Noor. Please.
Thank you so much, Excellency, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, my colleagues, Somali authorities, ambassadors, our partner, international partners, the commissioners, all the delegates. Assalamu alaikum, and a very good afternoon to you all. I would like, in premise, to commend the job of the organizers, and especially the health workforce who is there to make us observe the COVID protocol. Thank you all. I will be speaking briefly, presenting these remarks on behalf of the Social Sector Subcommittee. COVID-19 pandemic is a reality of global health crisis and has been recognized as the greatest challenge the world has faced in decades. The total COVID-19 positive cases recorded in the country is 4,525, with 121 associated death cases, and over 900 active cases remain in the country, posing the risk of further transmission of the virus to the community. Positive cases have been declining since May 2020, but the number of positive cases recorded are on the rise this dating pandemic. As per the global recommendations, the federal member states and the federal government of Somalia stood up to not only detect the virus, isolate and manage cases, but also all the preventive measures have been put in place in a coordinated manner led by the Prime Minister. We are grateful to the generosity and the technical assistance by our international partners to support the COVID-19 preparedness
and responses across the country. Nonetheless, several studies were conducted in the country to measure the impact of COVID-19 on social development of the country due to the pandemic and policy actions taken. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Joint External Evaluation for the International Health Regulations, IHR, in 2016 acknowledged that Somalia had nascent capacity in most of the 19 technical areas for the implementation of the international health regulations. Coupled with multiple challenges health system of the country was facing. Despite Somalia has made significant progress on reducing maternal mortality and under 5 mortality over the past 2 decades, COVID-19 pandemic has, however, now overshadowed and potentially reversing the health gains the country has made as the demand of healthcare services has been observed declining by at least 11% of the outpatient visits due to the fear of being infected by the virus. Estimates are telling us that the immunization coverage can drop by 20%. That means 313,500 children without pentavalent 3. And facility-based deliveries can decrease by 4%, God forbid. While there was no testing facility for the COVID-19 before the pandemic, the country has now 11 testing facilities, all built over the past 6 months, a sign of government's responsiveness and accountability to manage this pandemic despite severe resource constraints. So far, 60,393 samples of COVID-19 were tested in the country, which means that every 5 persons out of 1,000 have been tested for COVID-19 in the country. Because of resource constraints, our testing capacity is still limited. With the support of our partners, the government was also able to quickly establish isolation centers across all states. Currently, 16 of these specialized health facilities for treatment of COVID-19 patients are functional. However, no one is safe until everyone is safe. Owing to porous borders and cross-border movement of people, the government remains vigilant. Any sign of resurgence of virus is being monitored closely, and appropriate public health measures would be scaled up whenever there are signs of resurgence or recirculation of virus. There is an intense planning process led by the Ministry of Health in collaboration with our health partners to prepare the health sector to receive COVID-19 vaccine when it becomes available, sometimes toward the 3rd or the 4th quarter of 2021. This is being made possible by the COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access Facility, known as COVAX facility. As for the impact on health, in education, COVID has adversely impacted our education system, disrupting school calendars, causing gaps. School closures put decades of education gains for Somali children at risk. Studies show that 45% of families with school-going children reported that since school closure, children have no access to learning materials, with increased risk of teachers losing their jobs coupled with lowered household income, which will further increase the risk of financial crisis in the education system. Our government, in close cooperation with international partners, has been trying to come up with alternative options of continuing the education of children, such as remote learning for private schools. In mid-March 2020, the federal government of Somalia has announced stay-at-home and social distancing orders nationwide to curb the spread of SARS-CoV-2 virus. Hundreds of thousands of casual laborers and small business suffered. Airline travel sector alone furloughed numerous workers. Unemployment increased, worsening poverty rates. A study shows that 45% of the population report their concern of losing jobs or unable to earn income in the near future, where the 66% of those surveyed across the country reported underemployment or unemployment. Besides, the 2020 good season harvest is expected to be between 20 to 30 lower compared with the long-term average due to the combined impacts of desert, locust, and other pest infestations, flooding and extended dry spells, and the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, the number of people in severe food security has been estimated to triple by the end of this year. An estimated 2.6 million internally displaced persons live in an overcrowded and poorly served campus. These vulnerable communities are the hardest hit. The government's social protection initiative, known as Pahnano, is a good step toward, though not enough. In conclusion, while the government has prepared to respond to potential second wave of COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government is very conscious to mitigate the impact of COVID on social development. The government is therefore aiming to enhance government's commitment in increasing domestic financing and coordination to social development, with primary goal of maintaining the provision of basic social services during and post-COVID pandemic, mobilize more external resources from our international partners, thank you, with more engagement and leverage the resources from private sector and diaspora to address gaps in protection needs, preventing and responding to COVID-19 pandemic, with more attention to long-term solutions of building back better. Support and strengthen the peace humanitarian development nexus to ensure joint planning and monitoring towards resilience building, institutional and alignment of resources and projects to the National Development Plan priorities. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Minister Fawzia Abikar Noor. Now I would like to welcome Abdurrahman Duale Beyle, Minister of Finance.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, the Presidents of the federal member states, my colleagues, ministers, ambassadors, dignitaries, special guests, good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure for me to participate, Mr. Prime Minister, this very important meeting. We really do cherish meetings like this. It is only when we come together and dialogue, when we come together and exchange views, that you will be able to understand what the issues are here and can assist us moving forward. So we really do welcome these meetings. Needless to say, of course, that I congratulate the team that prepared this. It's well prepared and well done. Mr. Chairman, I really like the statement and welcome the statement that's always said, mostly in the Western world. It says, if you can think it, you can do it. If you can think it, you can do it. But this is a very loaded statement. It seems simple, but it's not. it assumes a lot of things. It assumes that you can think it, you can articulate it, you can commit to it, but if you cannot fund it, you cannot do it. If you cannot fund it, you cannot do it. The reason I am bringing this is that in all our discussions, important as they are, and as much as we appreciate, they focus mostly on one side of our discussion, of our equation. We are talking about the equation of input and output. We normally seem to be putting a lot of emphasis on the output. That is to say, we are putting a lot of emphasis on what needs to be done. What needs to be done. Now, if you have what needs to be done, and you can even commit to it, if you can articulate it, and you don't have the funding, you can dream all you want, you will not be done. It will not be done. I therefore very humbly want to suggest, Mr. Chairman, that in our next meeting, we bring here a strategy that is costed. Strategy that's costed. What is it that we need to do? When are we going to do them, item by item, and what is the cost and the sources of funding? This is really a suggestion for you, our partners, to think about. I want to, Mr. Chairman, thank the international community for the support that it gave to our country. Just to add to your earlier suggestion, earlier statement, let me now come back to briefing you, ladies and gentlemen, on the reform agenda, really on the financial aspect of the economy. I leave the macro side to my colleague, Jamal Hassan, the Minister of Planning. On the financial side, of course, my colleague, Minister of Health, just spoke about the effect of the coronavirus. Also, my real colleague and partner at the World Bank, Christina, spoke about the effect of the coronavirus. This shows you really, it's as if she has what I have here, Christina. This shows you how frequently we discuss things. Really, on our side of the table, we need to put everything on the table. So everybody knows every day and every minute what is it that we're working on. So if we deviate from what we have agreed, we can immediately be corrected. Coronavirus had three effects on our economy financially, that is. One is the decline in the domestic revenue by, like she said exactly, Christina, about 30 million or so. 30 million in a country like ours is a lot. That is just the amount of decline in the domestic revenue, ladies and gentlemen. In addition to that, there was the cost of combating with this virus, the cost of rehabilitating hospitals, the cost of establishing ICUs, the cost of bringing in the requirements, equipments, and what have you, the oxygen, the medicine, and what you need to combat with this. And there is the cost of the tax relief that we gave to stable goods, so that the stable goods in the country will not rise prices. Prices will not rise, will be stable, and people will not feel seriously prices going up the roof. When you put all these things together financially, the effect of this pandemic was about 50 million. And 50 million, as I said earlier, is a lot when you look at our very small economy. The second issue I want to speak about is where we are in the reform agenda, the HIPIC initiative, that you are very much aware we have done very well. And we have done very well because of your support. We have done very well with your support. We have reached the milestone, the first milestone, and that was in March, reaching the decision point. And we were elated to reach there. We were elated to reach there. We were very happy to go to the top of the mountain. Very, very many mountains coming, but the first top of the hill we have reached. The consequences of that was for us to get access to grant resources, Mr. Chairman, from the institutions, particularly the IFIs, and also from governments. We are very happy to be now enrolled in the subsequent to the SMP program. That is the ECF, the Extended Credit Facility. That is going to take us 24 to 36 months, Mr. Chairman, starting from March this year, 2022, 23, and we are forging ahead. We are forging ahead. And we are assuming everything being equal, we will be able to reach this. We were not, very few people expected us to reach decision point at that particular point in time. But I think if you can think it, you can do it. We thought about it, and we committed to it, and we were able to do it. There is no reason to doubt our resolve to also reach completion point in time, maybe shorter. Finally, Mr. Chairman, let me speak about the budget and where we are, and the effect or expected effect or assumptions that elections may affect our economy. I want to assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that the elections and the activities that are going on in this country, very necessary activities, they are completely sealed off from our economy. Our economy, the budget finances activities that are agreed upon. The budget has about 4 million or so, which is expected to be about 10% of the total cost of the elections. That is in the budget. I always say it is one thing to budget, but do you have the liquidity? That we will have to discuss with the international community and with everybody. What we have is what we pay and what we give. What we don't have, we will show you, and we'll have to discuss it. Ways and means of moving ahead. Now, our budget always got a budget support, Mr. Chairman, and we are very grateful for budget support. Our revenue was moving in a very positive trajectory, very positive. 2016, at the end, it was 141, 42. 2007, it was 184 million. Very small, but it was increasing from 142 to 184. 2019, it was 194. And this year, we expected it to be 230, this year, 2020. Now, because of the coronavirus, minus 30 million. That is 190 million. So it will be 4 million lower than last year. So this is where we are. We are trying to totally insulate the economy from the effect of the elections. The elections can only get what is slated for them. Otherwise, we have to fund what needs to be funded. And that's the priority of this nation. And that is what is in the budget approved by the authorities, the parliament and the cabinet. Now, let me finally say that preparing the budget, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we prepare our budget. Budgets are prepared in two ways. Countries that are rich, better to do, better than us, they identify goals of growth. They identify things to be done. And then they get the money and allocate to it. There are certain things that they are sure they have to do, they allocate. For us, the other way around. You have a small amount of money, what can you do with it? That is really what on our side. You have this amount, what can you do with it? Do you pay the salaries? Do you pay the rations? Do you pay electricity of governments? What do you do with it? That's really where we are. What do you do with what you have? Now, when we are preparing the budget, ladies and gentlemen, as you very well know, we prepared it with the IMF and the World Bank and the EU, and everybody knows. Everybody knows the revenue, and that's where we first start. And we fix the expenditure side. Fix the expenditure side, what you have, and then we allocate. Now, when we allocate, we all agree that there is a gap to cover the minimum. A gap to cover the minimum. Then the support always came from the World Bank, EU, the government of Turkey, and some from the African Development Bank lately. This is how we covered our budget. And we have agreed that we do X, Y, and Z to fulfill requirements to get access to these funds. Now, we want to keep our side of the bargain, our side of the agreement. I just hope that because elections are going on, we don't have second thoughts, or we don't delay the process of delivering on your side whatever we have committed, whatever we have committed. We can find ways. If you are worried about the elections, we can always find ways to earmark your money already committed to finance a specific activity, and we will be happy to do that. I am just afraid and concerned that if we don't honor the commitment that we both made, that the reversal of what we have been able to do so far will be regrettable, So really, I want to, Mr. Chairman, conclude by saying that we are very thankful for what you have done for us. We are very thankful with the genuine contributions that you are making for this country to move forward. And on our side, rest assured, we are committed. We are very much committed. We are going to go to elections, but at the same time, we will grow our economy. As we speak today, last month, Mr. Prime Minister, as you know, last month, November, we have realized the highest revenue from the port, the highest ever revenue in the port, 12 million. Very small for you guys, but it's very big. We celebrated, in fact. Prime Minister went there, and we had to thank everybody for this amount of money. And so, therefore, maybe there is a blessing in disguise regarding the coronavirus. Coronavirus, I hope it doesn't come back, the second wave, but we are recovering. The economy is recovering. But I want to assure you, allay the fear, any fear, if there is anything, that the elections are going to affect negatively the economy. It's sealed off, and it will continue parallelly with the elections. I want to thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for giving me the chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Bailey. Let me pass to the Minister Jamal Mohammed Hassan, Minister of Planning, Investment, and Economic Development. Welcome.
Thank you, Excellency. His Excellency Mohammed Hussein Roble, the Prime Minister of the Federal Government of Somalia, Deputy Prime Minister, Cabinet colleagues, ambassadors, heads of delegations, ladies and gentlemen, Kalab Wanaksan. I'm very pleased to be with you all today. As you're all aware, Somalia will complete its first year of NDP 9 implementation come end of 2020, which is upon us within a few weeks. NDP 9 serves as our interim poverty reduction strategy paper. The IMF and the World Bank assessed our IPRSP and found it complied with international accepted standards of an IPRSP. This was communicated through the Joint Staff Assessment Note, JSAN, which commended our effort. The implementation of the NDP 9, or the IPRSP, commenced on January 1st, 2020. The plan has been prepared through a widely consultative and participatory process. A wide range of stakeholders, including business, civil society, legislators at both houses in the federal and federal member state parliaments, and international partners were widely consulted to ensure that priorities identified reflected the needs of all Somalis. However, the effect of COVID-19 pandemic, which gradually became worse and culminated at an almost complete halt of economic activity around March 2020, had a serious negative impact on the implementation of some portions of the plan. In addition, other concomitant shocks, flooding, and desert floods during the first half of 2020 have further complicated the situation. The interlinkage between climate and environmental change, cyclical drought, fragility, and severe insecurity are arguably more pronounced in Somalia than many other countries in our region. People are increasingly caught between deadly extremes. Conditions are either too wet or too hot and dry. Cyclical floods and droughts are an increasingly common feature, and their coexistence poses a lethal threat. With most Somalis dependent on agriculture, primarily livestock and forestry, continued climate impacts wreak havoc with daily life. the ability of Somalis to recover is progressively being degraded. Moderate to heavy rains caused substantial flooding in low-lying areas along the Shabelle and Juba rivers in 2019, resulting in several deaths and significant damage to infrastructure, crops, property, and livestock. The flooding affected more than 500,000 people across 17 districts in 10 regions in the 3 states of Jubaland, Hirshabelle, and Southwest, with 370,000 people displaced from their homes. To compound an already dire humanitarian situation, heavy rains, wet soils have supported the uncontrolled development and spread of desert logs across Somalia and much of East Africa. The agriculture sector remains the backbone of the economy at 75% GDP, one of the highest sectoral shares in the world. The livelihoods of roughly half of Somalia's population is reliant on pastoralism or agro-pastoralism, which implies that a significant portion of Somalia's population remains highly vulnerable to climate change and natural disasters. While spending by the FGS has increased significantly over the last few years, it remains concentrated on security and public administration, reflecting the immediate priorities of security and state building. And neither the FGS nor the FMS has the resources to allocate more resources for an early recovery and development. Pursuing integrated approach and bridging the divide between humanitarian aid, development cooperation, and peace building are generally seen as critical preconditions for making progress. Therefore, going forward, given the impact of these multiple shocks, the short-term outlook of the Somali economy has deteriorated, and the medium-term outlook in terms of recovery is somewhat still uncertain. Economic activity is now expected to contract by 1.5% during 2020, compared to projected growth of 3.2%. Nevertheless, we expect that the economy will resume a gradual growth trajectory from 2021, and remains realistic to expect the growth to reach around 4% in the long run, given the envisaged improvements in macroeconomic stability and investment in physical and human capital. Recent data also shows some signs of economic resilience. Import flows have remained stable through the peak of COVID-19, partly supported by stronger than expected remittance flows. Nonetheless, there is disruption of Somalia's exports has been substantial, especially for the key livestock sector, which was impacted by the cancellation of the Hajj season. An overall drop in economic activities across government and private sectors has resulted in an increase in unemployment. There is increased need for increasing domestic financial resource mobilization to meet the current savings deficit and social safety nets to support the affected households. Now, some of the plans to tackle the crisis that we can think of include, while the prevailing crisis has forced us to reprioritize our efforts in the short term, we remain committed to advancing a broad-based reform agenda to bolster the foundations for sustained inclusive growth and improve the resilience to climate shocks. The government's strong commitment and international support have combined to create a unique window of opportunity to address low growth and poverty in Somalia. Large multi-year investments in human and physical capital will be needed to improve resilience and lead to higher and more inclusive growth. Therefore, the increased access to grant-based financing expected to materialize as we progress through the HIPIC process, which will be critical in addressing some of these challenges. On the other hand, the gradual development of local governance and local service delivery is an opportunity to localize the humanitarian development and access by empowering local and regional stakeholders to make assistance more responsive and more relevant to the community needs and aspirations. We have taken further steps to tackle the systemic challenges surrounding the multiple crises in Somalia. We have established a crisis policy and coordination center, and we're also making progress in the implementation of the Somalia Crisis Recovery Project, the SCRP, with support from the World Bank. On the investment side, Excellencies, I wish to underscore the important role of investments, particularly FDI inflows, on our economic development. We believe it is the only sustainable approach to improve job growth, reduce poverty, secure food security, balance trade or export, and control currency fluctuations as we get more foreign currency. Our government continues to deliver on holistic policies that improve Somalia's investment climate. Over the last 2 years, we have undertaken concrete steps in this direction, including institutional building, nationwide investment facilitation offices, investment promotions, or even establishing frameworks and strategies that will help the development of the investment sector. A bill to establish an investment promotion agency, called SomInvest, which will work on the investment policy and the promotion of key industries, and the related investment protection bill are currently being deliberated by the Parliament. Finally, Your Excellency, 2020 is an important year for Somalia. The outlook of peaceful national elections, as well as the potential for accelerated economic growth and development resulting from the debt relief and the progress we make on the transfer of security responsibilities from the African Union to Somali forces are all encouraging and extremely important. Thank you very much.
waqti badan ma hayno waa 3 minutes aan siinayaa Omar Farouk. We don't have enough time. I give you 3 minutes, Omar Farouk. Then Abdi Abshir, 3 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, ministers, ambassadors, comrades, and friends of Somalia. I make this intervention on behalf of the working masses of Somalia, represented by the Federation of Somali Trade Unionists and its 12 affiliated unionists. We are extremely happy with the invitation to participate in this Somali Partnership Forum, which gives us, the organized labor, the unique opportunity to share with you some of our thoughts on how to respond effectively to the complex COVID-19 crisis and the climatic shocks facing Somalia. Excellencies, if we are a nation that is concerned with upholding the human rights of others, helping our vulnerable communities out of poverty, advocating for a decent living wage for workers, and championing the rights of women and girls, then our socio-economic recovery strategies must take these into account. Due to the effects of this crisis, lives and livelihoods are under serious threat for the majority of the population, and over and above, the raging crisis have exposed the extent of the deficiencies inherent in the health, social protection, labor protection, and environmental management systems of Somalia. We must work together to bring back to life our moribund economy based on a people-centered approach, and in particular by promoting employment as an effective recovery strategy in tackling the ravages of COVID-19 crisis and the disastrous cyclical droughts and floods. This will allow us not only to build an inclusive society in which the interests and aspirations of the citizenry will not be relegated to the dustbin, but also achieve better normality based on decent and job-rich green inclusion. We would like to reiterate our call to the federal government, federal member states, and all the development partners supporting Somalia for increased engagement in developing a new social contract which should inform an economic, social, and ecological national agenda for tackling these crises from a just transition and people-centered development perspectives. Going forward, it is imperative for us to continue to rely on the mechanisms of social dialogue in order to seek lasting solutions to Somalia's multifaceted challenges. In addition, greater solidarity among Somalis and the international partners is needed more than ever, which is the basis for building back better and leaving no one behind in our search for lasting solutions to mitigate the effects of these complex crises. Excellencies, delivering a peaceful, credible, and inclusive elections. As workers, it was not our choice to have an indirect electoral model, but it has become inevitable. Now, those who sat down and imposed it on the Somali people must implement and end the ongoing lamentations. Trade unionists support the implementation of the electoral political agreement in a timely fashion. We want women and youth to have a meaningful participation. we want to call for the protection of the twin freedoms, the right to freedom of expression and the right to freedom of association. Ensure the protection of the legal and physical safety of journalists and implement the declaration on the moratorium on the arrest of journalists while carrying out their professional responsibilities as committed by the Prime Minister and the President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Omar. We have time constraints. I think by this time we were supposed to close. We will be very brief. I give maximum 2 minutes to 3 minutes each. Let me call UK-EU Dayman Bristow. Is Dayman around or is joining us online? Okay.
I'm sorry, I apologize, Your Excellency. I was having some challenges with IT. I will try to be a little briefer than I intended, given the time. But firstly, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers, Ambassadors, colleagues, just a warm word of thanks for calling this meeting and recognising the huge effort that has been put in. To say also that, as you mentioned, this statement is on behalf of the co-chairs, the UK and the EU, for the Economic Pillar Working Group. I will focus my comments on 2 areas. Firstly, we welcome the efforts of the Somali authorities and international community to help mitigate the impacts of COVID-19. It's important that any recovery is inclusive and human rights based and improves the capacity to prevent and manage future pandemics and builds resilience to future shocks. As such, we welcome the recent launch of Bashano and other such social protection schemes that will be needed to help Somalis cope with the impact of numerous crises, including locust, COVID-19 and climate extremes, something of which the Ministers for Planning, Ministers of Finance and colleagues from the World Bank have also mentioned. Just to say, Somalia is, as has been recognised, one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to the increasing effects of climate change. It exacerbates vulnerability to conflict, environmental damage and disease. Managing these risks requires a comprehensive response that is sustainable and protects the natural resource base on which so many Somali livelihoods depend. The recent approval of the National Climate Change Policy and recent work to develop a national water resources management strategy are a good start. I am delighted that the UK will be hosting COP26 next year and would encourage Somalia to engage positively with the negotiations and to publish an ambitious nationally determined contribution ahead of those negotiations that reflects your goals. As Somalia develops and grows its own domestic revenues, we look forward to seeing increased government spending on social sectors, including education and health. One of the key benefits, I think, of the debt relief process of which we've heard so much. Such investments are crucial for increasing trust to government and for Somali citizens to participate in building society, the social contract of which my ambassador spoke so eloquently earlier on today. Special attention also needs to be paid to women, IDPs and other groups that run the risk of marginalisation. Gavi and other global health initiatives can play a huge role in improving human capital, and we encourage the government to focus not only on COVID-19 response and a vaccine to that, but also budgets for co-payments to ensure other critical vaccinations, especially for children, can be delivered safely. Secondly, I just want to dwell quickly on the HIPC reforms. We congratulate the Somali government on reaching decision point, a process for which we were honoured to act as champion. Many important reforms were delivered to reach this stage of the debt relief process, and we and other international donors will continue to provide support to help Somalia reach completion point. We are especially proud of what has been achieved in this area, as we see it as being a true partnership between the FGS, the FMS and international partners. The reduction in remittances to Somalia earlier this year and the ongoing need to increase external investment demonstrates the importance of reforming the financial sector. We encourage the passing of the targeted financial sanctions law in the lifetime of this administration to facilitate future remittances and investments into Somalia. We're disappointed that the audit bill has yet to receive presidential approval, but we look forward to it doing so within the same timeline. Independent audits are key to demonstrating the appropriate use of resources, and we encourage the continued publication of reports. And we look forward to studying the recent audit report on 29 expenditure, including how past audit recommendations have been followed up. On wider public financial management, we note the Financial Governance Committee, FGC, has become an important pillar when it comes to establishing and maintaining trust between the government and international partners. The last FGC report made some important recommendations regarding the need to follow due process in the issuance of concessions and procurements, particularly in oil and gas. And we encourage faster progress in developing legislation and safeguards, such as the Extractive Industries Income Tax Law, so that Somalia can profit from its oil and gas deposits while minimising any risks. We congratulate the Somali government on the positive developments in advancing Somalia's WTO accession ambitions, as the Swedish ambassador mentioned earlier on today. Done well, and in partnership between the federal member states and the federal government, this could act as a further boost to Somalia's economic development and integration in the world economic system. Finally, we are really encouraged by the ongoing dialogue and cooperation between the federal government and member states on economic reforms and the division of roles and responsibilities in social service delivery. Looking ahead to MAF 21, we need to see intergovernmental fiscal transfers become more predictable, transparent, and based on clear rules and criteria. We also need to see a resolution to allow all development programs, including IDA, to be delivered in Somaliland. Doing this will ensure the debt relief process can benefit all Somalis. As Minister Bailey so eloquently said earlier on, if you can think it, we can do it. Thank you, colleagues.
Let me call now Nicholas Berlanga, EU Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister. The EU co-chair this working group, so let me support what my UK colleague said, but I would like to address some ideas to Minister Bailey, with whom we work very closely. Minister, I would like to reiterate our availability to support with any technical assistance you will need, and you know that we share with you the needs also to improve the capacities of federal member states, and to improve the transparency, the accountability, the absorption capacity from federal member states on public finance management. You mentioned, Minister, the issue of improving domestic revenues. Let me also briefly mention 4 avenues that we would really like to work with you on in this sense. The first one, of course, we started some time ago, is modernizing the custom procedures. As you have done a remarkable work. Your custom director should be really rewarded and be remembered as one of the persons that contributed the most to the stability of your country. The second thing is something that you have heard me before, is improving the transparency around fisheries licensing and curbing illegal activities. I am happy to see that the member states are listening to us, because some of these problems are coming from some member states. So the fisheries sector is a sector with a lot of potential. Let's make it formal and not informal. The third thing has already been mentioned, even you mentioned it in your address, is the telecom sector. And if we compare with other countries, there are possibilities to increase the tax revenues to the government in this sector. And the final one is the exploitation of oil and gas deposits. Sometimes there are some conflicting ideas and conflicting news coming about this sector. Please make sure that you get the best deal for your citizens and the future of your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's next? Okay, African World Bank. Nene Mwabufu. Okay, let me give to the floor. Ali Abshir, Chamber of Commerce. Abdi, 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. And Excellencies, other dignitaries. Now is the time, although you are very tired, the power of money is talking now. It is interesting really to listen now. Somali private sector, as you listened last few minutes, is those who really pay the taxation to survive the Somali government. And therefore, the private sector needs a mutual partnership with two different parts who are sitting here now. One is the government, and the other is the international partners. It's not first time we met in London, and then we met in Brussels, and now it's here the third time in 4 years. Although we have really did really very good steps before, but still the private sector, we would like to see drastic improvements in the flowing area. With the government, I mean. Then I will talk with the international partners. Taxation modernization is very important, and harmonization. Modern and consolidated business registration system, although we know there is a development there, but still we need to do more. We need to update and enact competitive legislation systems. International and national payments area is very important for us. Access to global financial services. Partnership in building facilities that will enable a sustainable economic growth, such as export processing facilities at the airport and seaport. Modern energy solutions. Export quality certifications, which is very important for the Somali export, and value-adding industrialization of local produce here and other infrastructure. Somali private sector needs integrity and credibility in the financial service sector internationally. Therefore, we are asking the government to do more in banking system, insurance, remittance, and international payments gateways. We would like to give the last one, before I start international partnerships, recommendations to the government. Investment and business cannot develop without, Somalia in the situation now, you see there is a little bit instability in the process of really, it needs political stability in this country. If not, the private sector is shaking now, which means that investment and business will not develop if you don't have political stability. Although the private sector maintains neutrality and focus of its core business. Now, international partners, we sit them and discuss in Brussels and in London, and now is the third time. We worked hard together in 4 different areas last 2 years, but still we believe it is time to move beyond small-scale projects and support direct investment by multilateral institutions. Therefore, we would like to see further engagement in the flowing area, which is only 3 areas really. Multilateral institutions such as the World Bank Group, other national banks, African Development Banks, and others, partners to take the next level of direct investment and partnership with the Somali private sector. Somali private sector themselves has enough money so they can really work with World Bank groups and African Development Bank. Support of the Somali private sector with essential skills that we are really missing, access to regional and global markets if Somali private sector really interested to export. We would like really to call for assistance in crucial sectors such as small industries, fishery, farming, and agriculture to start the export of the Somali productions here. We need the support of international partners in working with the Somali financial services, which is very important, to build credibility, access, and integrity in international market. We would like to thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. You are really sitting more than 8 hours here. And I would like to thank international partners here and other dignitaries here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abdi Abshir Dorre. Let me welcome His Excellency Sharif Mahmoud Saeed Isa from Egypt. Go on.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. As for the time constraint, I would like just to give very quick messages of support from Egypt to the people of Somalia and to the government of Somalia. As for the financial sector, we are ready to support. We have one of the biggest Egyptian banks ready to work in Somalia and just waiting for the license to start working in Somalia to support the private sector and also to the government transfer of money in a very organized way under the supervision of the Somalian government. As for education, Mr. Prime Minister, Egypt is giving around 300 scholarships annually for the students in humanitarian aid, Your Excellency. Egypt has been always in support of the Somalian people, and the last aid was around 34 tons of support. So the last humanitarian aid was around 34 tons of support delivered last month to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Climate change. Egypt also is ready to give its experience to the Somalian people and government in dealing with floods, desertification, and water management. Furthermore, Egypt is ready to support Somalia to access the financial resources available through the climate-related funds. Last but not least, I urge Her Excellency, the Minister of Health, to kindly request the benefit of the initiative given by President El-Sisi to treat 1 million Africans from the hepatitis disease. This is an offer that the President have given the initiative for, and we are ready to receive any request from the Somalian people, if any, wanted to be treated free of charge on the expenses of the Egyptian government. So, Mrs. Minister, we are ready to receive any request in this domain. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sharif Mahmoud Isa. So let me call now Ambassador Saeed Al-Zaban, Arab League. I think he's online.
Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Somalia, Your Excellencies, Presidents of the Federal Member States, distinguished Deputy Prime Ministers and Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to express our appreciation for convening this timely conference with the aim of further underpinning the foundations of peace, security, and stability in Somalia. A year has passed since our last meeting, and a lot of progress has been achieved despite the repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic, the flooding, the desert locust, and the continuous security fragility. The League is encouraged by the 2021 Mutual Accountability Framework for Somalia as it offers a realistic plan on the needed steps to be achieved by both the Somali stakeholders and their international partners for the remaining period of the current Somali administration, as well as to help a smooth transition period. The Arab League follows closely the positive developments in the political, socio-economic, and security fields and welcomes the different initiatives aiming at building necessary comprehensive consensus for convening democratic, integrous, and transparent parliamentary and presidential elections. It welcomes the initiative launched this morning by you, Prime Minister, to resume the national dialogue between the federal government of Somalia and the federal member states to maintain the so far built consensus and pave the way towards the convening of the elections. I would also like to praise the excellent job achieved so far by the Somali National Army in cooperation with AMISOM forces and express the full support of the League for the implementation of the security transition plan as soon as ground conditions are met. There should be no single room for terrorism in Somalia. This is not a matter of security only, but rather a matter of Somali national unity glued by strong international cooperation. The League will continue its efforts to advance the level of integration between the emerging Somali economy and the different Arab member states, as well as sensitizing the Arab funds and agencies to the priorities Somali economic recovery plans. Last September, the League convened a high-level meeting in this direction, chaired by His Excellency Secretary General and His Excellency Abdulrahman Bili, the Somali's Minister of Finance, with the participation of the representatives of Arab creditors, funds, and states. There was a unanimous recognition of the excellent job achieved so far by the government in matters pertaining to meeting the requirements of the HEPIC initiative and international financial institutions. Arab creditors expressed their will to advance their cooperation with the Somali legitimate ambitions. Both Somalia and the Arab creditors are engaged now to work together to reach the needed full debt relief. From our side, the League is fully committed to advance all sorts of technical coordination and consultations, including with the international financial institutions, to accelerate the process of fully debt relief and normalization of relations between Somalia and the Arab multilateral funds. Mr. Prime Minister's Arab efforts to assist Somalia are an obligation towards a member state. Somalia remains a cornerstone in peace and stability in the Horn of Africa and the larger Africa-Arab state space. Your challenges are ours, and your hopes are ours as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Zaid Al-Zaban. Now let me call Minister Duran, Minister of Labor and Social Affairs. Minister.
Thank you, Your Excellency, His Excellency the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, colleagues, cabinet colleagues, presidents of the federal member states, Governor of Banat region, Excellencies, distinguished guests, all of protocol observed. It is with great pleasure that tangible progress this year. Among these is the rollout of the first government-led safety net project, a Banana project, which is intended to support 200,000 households across Somalia. It's progressing well despite the COVID-19 challenge. Government also providing back to the Somali's recovery efforts. Another key progress made is the development of the Unified Social Registry under Banana project, which is progressing well and expected to be fully functional by July 2021. This is a key milestone to the debt relief process, and we are all eager to have it finalized. Special thanks to our partners who are supporting us in accomplishing this important milestone. The Minister, on the other hand, is leading on building confidence in the government by creating structures to manage unemployment, which is, as you are all aware, a key concern for our country. Late last year, the National Employment Policy was ratified. This policy provides a clear roadmap to address unemployment in the country. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, little progress has been made. However, the Ministry is set out plans to see its implementation in the coming months. As we speak, my ministry is holding a 3-day national employment conference, the first conference on its kind in Somalia that has brought together key stakeholders with the objective of discussing concrete solutions for addressing unemployment. And this conference also provides an opportunity to initiate dialogue required to establish a National Employment Council. This council is intended to be a high-level body composed of various stakeholders and will be responsible for steering the implementation of the employment policy. Last but not least, as a nation, we must build the skills that are necessary to foster economic growth. A TVET policy has been developed and expected to be launched early next year. A joint and sustained action will be required to secure quality training and to create new opportunities for our youth, and we will be working closely with our partners to realize this. Finally, I wish to thank our partners for their hard work and commitment shown towards supporting important initiatives that aim to support our most vulnerable as well as investing in our country's human capital. I would like to thank you, Prime Minister, for giving me this platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Duran. Let me welcome the Italian delegation.
Thank you, Prime Minister. So we started this day with acknowledging that the capacity of the state institution in Somalia is gradually strengthening. And we also spoke about inclusiveness, mainly in the sense of the states, member states, etc. But I don't want to forget, which could mean inclusivity and access to health and education sector for the Somali population. This year started very badly, we can say, and this is a symptom of capacity of resilience nowadays of the Somali institution. Particularly the Ministry of Health started with a tremendous challenge with a crisis, terrible crisis on human resources the very early this year, and then was the COVID. Despite of that, the government and the ministry continues with their guidance in facing this tremendous challenge of the COVID, organized and collaborating and coordinating with all of us. And I really would like to congratulate with that. Good health is the cornerstone of well-being of individuals, families, communities, and the whole society in general. In combination with high-quality education, they are vital for sustainable economy and development of Somalia, as well building peace. There will be no peace without a social contract. Social contract means it was mentioned today, in providing services. These services must be done, must be provided by the state. In the future, we must avoid intermediation. So little by little, the state must recover its role in providing services in education, in health, and in justice. With a good social contract, every people will defend the authorities. If they receive services from the state, they will be with us, with the government. That's why I know the difficulties, Minister Bailey, about the budget and so on, but I can assure you that every cent spent in the social contract and the services provided by the state will be good money, good spent. And we as donors, we are ready. I know that the World Bank is doing a good job in strengthening institutions in accountability and transparency. We, the donors, are very ready for budget support and support to projects directly done by the government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now let me pass to the U.S. Ambassador Yamamoto. I think he's online.
Hello, sorry, Ambassador Yamamoto had to leave, so I'll make a I'll be very points. But also to put together press in such a short time frame. Very good candidates and some good.
I think the line is back. Maybe we got access. Can you hear him? Maybe we got another person.
Environment that brings investment and resources in the country, that allows people to develop their livelihoods and take care.
I can see the network from US is very bad. So let's jump to the Finland. Ambassador Eric
Focus should be on is on these.
We can't hear you. Can you stop, please?
Food security, environment, infrastructure, action and turning policies and strategies.
Okay. Thank you. Let us go to the Ambassador Erik Lundberg from Finland.
Very easy win for promoting now.
Yeah. Okay. Can you disconnect, please? Yeah. Okay. Okay, China. Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Premier Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and cabinet members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. So I would like to take this opportunity to share ideas and suggestions with Somali friends and my colleagues. So, because this topic is related to social economic recovery for the COVID-19 and climate related shocks. Two topics are related with Somalia, also are important to Somalia. Yeah. So topics are social economic recovery and economic development from COVID-19 and in future. Another topic is climate related. So regarding COVID-19, as you know, it is still spreading in the world. From this is from today meeting. So everybody is bringing masks. Yeah. So China has won major strategic achievement in the fight of COVID-19 and the stronger leadership of CPC Central Committee as Comrade Xi Jinping as call. Yeah. So China would like to provide strong assistance and support to the every country is in the world, including Somalia. So Somalia is affected by COVID-19 and climate change. So I hope we call on international community should provide strong support to Somalia. International community should set up funds to Somalia, to countries in the world like Somalia. Yeah, because as you know, it's a relative international community and humanity. So Chinese advocates, humanity is a community with a shared future. So you can see, and also, this epidemic of COVID-19 have fully shown humanity is a community with shared future, So solidarity and cooperation is a powerful weapon for international community in fighting COVID-19. You can see, you can think of it. Yeah. So in recent days, I interviewed by SNTV. So some Somali friends ask about China relations with Somalia. As you know, this year marks 60th anniversary of establishment diplomatic relations between China and Somalia. And so, the world is undergoing momentous change and scene in the century. International situation is ongoing, major change, and peace, stability, and general trade, and developing forward. We sincere Somali more achievements in the pursuit of lasting peace and sowing development prosperity with coming of next year. So how to develop a Somali economy? So I think Somali should focus on Somali advantage. I mentioned many times with Somali friends. Somalia has many advantages and potentials, great potentials. So we have published my articles on the SONA. So Somali should transfer advantage and greater potential to the achievements of development. This is very important. So Somalia should develop its own independence development of capacity. This is very important for Somalia. Yeah. So China cannot export to its own developing model. China is not interested in it. Even if we are discussing of Somali economic development, I would suggest Somalia should develop their fishery industry. So through development of Somali fishery, Somalia can create foreign currency and increase job and to improve people lively hard. Yeah. So Somalia should focus on one or two industries. Somalia should collect talents and experts to study economic development. And recently, China concluded the 5th plenary session of 19th CPC Central Committee adopted recommendation for formulating under China's 14th five-year plan. We have now, Somalia has formulated 9 national diplomatic plan. Yeah, so China would like to strong cooperation between our two sides. Yeah, so China will finish building moderately prosperous society in all the respects, and also will stay committed a new development philosophy and actively foster a new development paradigm with domestic circulations as mainstay and domestic and international circulations reinforcing each other. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Somalia could attend China and World International Expo. Yeah. So Somalia can show their fishery products to China. China market, huge market, welcome Somali fishery production to China. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, the ambassador from China. Now I would like to welcome the United Nations.
Thank you, Prime Minister, Presidents of Federal Member States, Excellencies, all protocols observed. I'm here stepping in for the DSRSG Resident Coordinator, Humanitarian Coordinator. I would like to raise 3 points, if I may, very briefly, in the interests of time, that have been alluded to before, but I think deserve highlighting. First of all, I'd like to stress that we collectively have the opportunity to provide an integrated response to the COVID-19 crisis by simultaneously addressing socio-economic needs, strengthening resilience of communities and society as a whole, promoting social cohesion, using natural resources in a sustainable manner, and adapting to climate change. All of these things have been mentioned, but I would like to urge that we look at the going forward at a collaboration between both government and partners through an optic of the humanitarian development and peace nexus, with the idea of shifting away from the cyclical short-term humanitarian responses and towards more sustainable solutions aimed at longer-term resilience and development outcomes. The second 2 points I'd like to make are 2 things that I think is worth remembering as we move forward in the social economic recovery. One is human rights, and I'd like to mention 2 points in this respect. First of all, I'd like to commend the government for agreeing to the moratorium on forced evictions around elections. I think this is a very important point. The second aims, I would also like to commend the work that has been done in developing the sexual offences bill, and I would urge that this be tabled to Parliament. The third point I'd like to make is I'd like to welcome the efforts being made towards the advance of the Somali Women's Charter, which speaks to commitments to the 1325 and reinforces zero tolerance of sexual gender-based violence. And these are all captured in the National Action Plan to End Sexual Violence, and I'd like to commend that. This was mentioned by the SRSG, and we welcome the commitment of the government to a minimum of 30% women's representation in Parliament. And we look forward to supporting the government in this respect. Thank you.
Let me call USAID Director, Mr. Bad.
Prime Minister, my name's Brian France. I'm the Deputy for USAID, and my boss, Patrick, I think his system shut. Very quickly run through a few points that I think he had wanted to make. And again, I think we did want to stone Somalia's future development prospects did not, in our view, get the international recognition it deserved due to the onset of the COVID pandemic. Also, you know, as part of international support with Somali priorities. Just before he got cut off, that should be straightforward. Can you demonstrate its commitment to a sustained economic reform trajectory? Be the audit bill across the finish line. Understand really only requires the president get it through all the way through both chambers of parliament. Be a great signal of the government's commitment to transparency and accountability. The last thing we just wanted to note is for the last year or so, and I think the highlight of that being the fiscal track.
Brian,
budget.
We are experiencing internet challenges on our side, Brian. On behalf of the Prime Minister, I would request that you stop at that.
Can you stop? Okay. Can you stop? Okay, let me pass to the delegation from Spain. He left, eh? Okay. Halim Ismail Ibrahim.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I have two small issues on regards to the communique. One is when it was mentioning the election commission, the 8th line of the 4th paragraph, and the commission is independent election commission, not independent election committee. So it has to be corrected, and I will kindly ask to add preserving its mandate. That point. Another point is the woman issue. In the court and reading the communique, what we have seen, it's not enough. And we are pleased to note that the issue of the 30% quota for women has been highlighted in the communique. However, we fear that in the absence of a clear defined mechanism, the achievement of the 30% will be a major challenge. The experience of 2016 process provide further evidence to that effect. We propose that the communique refer to a specific mechanism that will deliver the 30% seat for women. We need some elevated language to deliver the 30% commitment, and we really thank the Prime Minister and the presidents of the federal member states who really supported the 30%. we are kind of asking a mechanism to safeguard the 30% and to nominate the women's ambassadors, goodwill ambassadors like last time. We really know that they worked hard in order to assure the 30%, and that's why now we have 24%. Sorry, I'm the chair of the Election Commission, but being the chair of Election Commission, I have to support those who has been forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Halima. So let's go to the Minister Mohamed Abdel who will do the communique. So please.
Thank you, Excellency, Prime Minister. I think we have all reached that point we have all been looking forward to, which is the communique. Not only because it's at the end of the day, but this is one of the most important things that a conference like this produces. The communique, as has been the practice in years past, the substantive issues have been discussed, negotiated, and synthesized into what is in front of you. The communique has been distributed, and those who are joining us by the internet, online, it has been sent to them by email. So the assumption is that you have all read it. Let me take this opportunity to thank all those who have worked on this and have negotiated this language. So in terms of substance, it's already there. However, for the sake of clarity, if there needs to be small points for language that need to be changed, I am going to take a couple of requests to do so. And again, the emphasis here is for the sake of clarity. I have listened to Madam Chair Halima Ibrahim, and we note it. So is the communique team, the drafting team, can you, yeah? You have taken that into account, okay? Ambassador Berlanga.
Thank you, Minister. I already told to the drafting committee, but I would like to submit it to you and to the plenary. In the fourth paragraph, which is the paragraph talking about elections, in the middle of the paragraph it says of a pathway to one person, one vote federal election in 24-25 with benchmarks and accountability mechanisms that reflect meaningful progress, comma. For example, I will propose to replace, for example, by in particular, or notably. It means, is this the idea that I said this morning that we should not only envisage 24-25, but also from now on, election that will happen at local and state level. So it may say with benchmarks and accountability mechanisms that reflect meaningful progress, in particular direct election at the local and state levels along the way.
Thank you, Ambassador. Noted and accepted as it makes the language more clearer. I don't see any other interventions at this point. You have all read it, and I'm going to go outside and read it now, summarize it in Somali after we have concluded here. But if no other comments, let's adopt it. Let's see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Abdulrazak. I think we had a long but productive day. We have covered all of the topics, fruitful discussions. We adopted the communique and endorsed the mutual accountability framework. I would like now to welcome the Prime Minister to conclude the meeting and have the closing remarks. The Prime Minister, welcome
Thank you.
on board.
Thank you. Excellencies, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for a productive event. I'm glad to hear that you all agree on the importance of the Somalia Partnership Forum to provide for a privileged space for a high-level dialogue with the international community and a number of key stakeholders. I would like to personally thank the leader of the federal member states for their participation and for giving us an overview on political, security, and social economic situation in their states. As I have said on a number of occasions and repeated here today, I'm proud of the political agreement reached by the federal government and federal member states on the political agreement on the election model, as well as the process of holding the election. Your Excellencies, elections are an important element of our democracy, and I understand the duty and responsibility of my government in ensuring we hold a timely, transparent, and consensus-based election. So let me make a few important points. We are aware of the concerns being expressed in some quarters, and as I have said many times, including in this meeting, we are open to meet with all, but as has been raised again and again during this meeting, there is no role for those who call for breaking the law and threaten to the peace dividend we have all worked so hard to achieve. On the question of the consensus political agreement on the election model, I'm glad to hear we are in agreement that we can't afford to reopen it. This will cause delay and undermine the credibility of the election in the eyes of the Somali public. I will be visiting the federal member states from next week to continue our important discussions, and will be followed by a meeting in Mogadishu with all federal member states. However, we must avoid a delay to the implementation of the election agreement as agreed by all stakeholders. As part of this, I call upon Jubaland and Puntland to nominate their respective election committees and fulfill their commitments to the political agreement. On the matter of the ghetto, I would like to reiterate the forces present are Somali security forces, and we must accept communities across the country should feel protected and supported by the federal government of Somalia. But the issue will resolve through the peaceful way. We have fulfilled fully the agreement signed by all stakeholders, including the process for electing member of parliaments from Somaliland, and have concluded a true consultation as required by the agreement. I can assure you this has been a I reaffirm the government commitment to uphold and realizing the 30% women quota. This is the least that we can do to developing a more fair security. With respect to the Somali National Arm reform, I called upon the World Bank to re-engage immediately so that we can complete the implementation of the reform agenda. Somalia has faced many threats, including the ongoing COVID-19, locust invasion, and floods in the past year. The support provided by our international partners has been significant, and I call upon you all to redouble your efforts in supporting local communities. I would like to thank both UK and Sweden for their active support for the WTO accession, which would unleash the business initiative of the Somali's private sector. I would like to thank you all for endorsing the Mutual Accountability Framework commitments for 2021 after receiving a report on the progress of implementation of the 2019 and 2020 milestone and on the impact of COVID-19. We understand that there are several challenges that remain, particularly around the elections. This is an important priority for me and will be my main topic of discussion during my regional tour to the federal member states. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to praise the team that has been steadily and meticulously been preparing this event. The Air Coordination Unit, the Office of Prime Minister, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. Thank you. The 2020 Somali Partnership Forum is officially closed. Thank you again.